Tonight we step into a gentle journey, not a lecture, but a way of seeing that softens the edges of the world. Inspired by the quiet, enduring wisdom of Fyodor Dostoevsky, we will wander slowly through questions that touch the tender places of the heart. What we explore here is not a doctrine to memorize, but an invitation, a lantern held at dusk, asking us to look inward and find the wisdom already glowing within. We will move through stories, through soft insights and contemplative questions, the kind that speak to the quiet, curious part of the mind that wakes when the world grows still. Perhaps by the end a small shift will have taken root, a steadiness that can hold chaos without being swept away, a freedom that arises not from escape but from acceptance. Welcome to SleepyPhilosopher, a sanctuary for the mind. Here there is nothing to prove, nothing to fix, nowhere to be but here. If you feel a resonance with this path of gentle reflection, you are warmly invited to subscribe, only if it feels right in your chest. And if you wish, share in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there, so our small constellation can quietly shine across the map. Let us take a soft breath together now, the first step of our walk. In slowly, and out even slower. We begin with a simple question that will guide us tonight. In a world that feels uncertain, how do we meet despair without collapsing? Dostoevsky listened to despair until it showed him a doorway, and through that doorway he glimpsed redemption. In the unsteady weather of life, he learned that suffering can open rather than close the heart, that even in darkness, a small clearing can appear. He wrestled with despair not as an enemy to erase, but as a teacher to endure, and in that patience he found the outline of redemption. Consider the moment he stood in Semyonovsky Square in St. Petersburg, December 22, 1849, lined up for execution with members of the Petrashevsky Circle. Blindfolds, the cold air, the drums. And then at the last instant, a reprieve, life returned in a rush, fragile and blazing. From there, exile and hard labor in Siberia followed, years of winter and iron, of cramped barracks and faces etched by hunger. In that stark world, he began to notice the smallest flames, a shared crust of bread, a memory passed quietly between strangers, the dignity that refuses to die even when conditions demand it. Much later, he gathered those observations into pages that would become notes from a dead house, first published in 1861, the voice of someone who had learned to see through the bars without letting his heart grow small. His darkness did not vanish, it ripened into insight. And so, this ancient, hard-won wisdom finds its echo in our own lives. We may not face the snare of a firing line, but we know the quickening pulse of dread. The message that arrives at the wrong moment, the bills that gather like clouds, the room that suddenly feels too tight for our breathing. In those moments, the mind tells a fast story of catastrophe, as if the world is closing in. Yet like a reprieve that arrives with the sound of boots on snow, a second gaze is possible. It is the gaze that steps back half an inch, the breath that widens the chest, the quiet that notices the sky above the street. When we remember this second gaze, a new pattern appears. Our difficulties are real, but they are not total. Our fear is loud, but it is not all of us. Let us pause here and try it. Inhale gently, as if you are gathering scattered papers into a calm stack. Exhale slowly, as if placing that stack on a quiet desk, knowing you will return to it with steadier hands. In the space after the breath, notice how even a thin thread of stillness can hold a surprising weight. If you wish, bring to mind a small moment of doubt from today, the flash of worry, the tightening of the shoulders. Hold it softly, the way you would hold a delicate cup. Then ask in a voice that is patient and kind, what lies beyond my immediate chaos? Do not rush the answer. Perhaps what lies beyond is not a solution, but a widening, not certainty, but a steadier place to stand. Imagine a room just a little larger than the one you are in, with a window quietly open to the night. You take one step back, and the walls no longer press. Let us take one more gentle breath together. In, feeling the chest rise. Out, feeling the shoulders fall. Allow this question to sit with you as the body grows heavy and the mind grows light. What waits for me on the far side of this moment? As we rest with Dostoevsky's company, we practice meeting despair with a steadier gaze, trusting that somewhere past the noise there is a clearing where resilience and quiet hope take root. For now, let the night be kind, and let your thoughts drift like snow, slow and forgiving, toward sleep. As we continue our quiet walk with Dostoevsky, we return to a truth we began to notice in the last segment. Suffering can be a threshold, not a wall, a dim doorway that opens to a deeper room within us when we bring a gentle, steady gaze to it. And breathe. He invites us to see pain not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a messenger that speaks in a language of tightness in the chest, restlessness behind the eyes, and thoughts that circle like birds at dusk. If we do not push it away or cling to it, if we simply sit beside it, we may discover that beneath the ache there is meaning, perhaps even tenderness, waiting to be translated. Let us take a soft breath here, allowing the exhale to lengthen, and imagine that each small discomfort is a key resting in the palm of the hand, asking to open something we have not yet explored. Dostoevsky gave this invitation a face in Raskolnikov, whose turmoil in crime and punishment trembles between brilliant ideas and a fevered conscience, between a theory of being above ordinary law and the stubborn gravity of the human heart. The novel first reached readers in 12 monthly installments in the Russian Messenger in 1866, a slow unfolding that matched the cadence of Raskolnikov's unraveling. After the crime, his thoughts fracture, streets narrow, time breaks into fits and starts. Even simple sounds seem too bright, too sharp. What began as a cold calculation becomes a furnace, and the heat of guilt finally melts the arguments he had polished so carefully. In the quiet space that follows confession, in the hard light of consequence, something tender begins to stir, like the first thaw beneath winter ice, hinting that suffering, when faced without excuses, can turn a person toward a different kind of life. And so, this old story finds its echo in our own rooms and routines. We know the smaller versions of his turmoil, the message left unanswered for too long, the promise postponed, the sharp word sent in haste, the night we scrolled past the point of rest and woke with a hollow behind the ribs. We watch ourselves build clever reasons, then feel the quiet ache of misalignment return, persistent as a dripping tap. Here suffering becomes a compass rather than a verdict, pointing not to punishment but to repair. When we give the discomfort a patient hearing, we may notice what needs tending. An apology offered, a boundary drawn, a rhythm of rest restored, or simply a warmer way of speaking to ourselves. If you like, let us practice together for a moment. Bring to mind a small unrest, nothing overwhelming, something you can hold with kindness, like a smooth river stone in your palm. Breathe in slowly and silently name what is present: guilt, worry, regret. Breathe out and soften the place in the body where it lives. Now ask quietly, what is this teaching me? What does it want repaired, remembered, or released? Do not force an answer. Let it arrive like dawn through a thin curtain. If a small step suggests itself, place it gently on tomorrow's path. If no step appears, rest with the question and allow it to ripen in its own time. As we settle toward sleep, may we trust that even our unrest can become a guide, not to perfection, but to a more honest, more spacious peace within us. Let us step softly beneath the surface of the mind, into the quiet chamber where Dostoevsky lets a particular voice speak, the one later called the underground man. It is not a monster hiding in the dark. It is a mirror held close to the face where every breath fogs the glass. This voice doubts, resists, scrutinizes itself, and dares to say uncomfortable truths about the human heart. Some call it a precursor to existential thought. At night, it feels simply like honesty, the kind that visits when the world has gone quiet. In our journey so far, we have learned to sit with pain without turning away, to let suffering show us the contours of what matters. Now we ask another gentle question: what opens when we sit with aloneness itself? Imagine a staircase leading down, not to prison, but to a listening room, stone cool, air still, the hush that lets faint truths be heard. We are not going down to escape life, but to see it more clearly, the way a tide pool at low water reveals shy creatures that daylight waves conceal. Here, with a slower breath and an unfurled attention, we begin to walk beside that voice, not to argue, but to understand. Let us take one soft inhale together and one longer exhale. And now we step inside. In St. Petersburg, a retired civil servant lives in a room a little below street level. He writes by lamplight, his words a confession addressed to no one and to everyone. These pages, first published in the journal Epoch in 1864, are called Notes from Underground. Above him, footsteps pass on wet stone, a carriage wheel hisses through slush, voices drift and fade. Inside, a kettle murmurs, plaster cracks like thin ice along the wall, and the table holds a thin stack of paper, a world turning inward. He toys with the neatness of reason, with the tidy comfort that says 2 times 2 makes 4, as if a sum could contain a storm. Yet he refuses to be totaled. He insists that a person can act against simple self-interest, simply to feel alive, to prove there is a pulse no formula can still. He is not a hero, not a saint. He is wounded and sharp, tender and contrary, circling his own feelings as if walking the edges of a frozen pond, testing the ice with the heel of his boot. And in the circle he draws, we glimpse not only his restlessness, but our own, our wish to be both known and free, our fear that to be defined is to be diminished. And so this subterranean voice finds its echo in our lives. We too have rooms below street level, late-night corners where the glow of a screen pools like water, where the last message is read and no reply arrives, where our names feel a little lighter than we wish they did. We scroll, we compare, we picture a conversation that continues without us and wonder if we are already forgotten. The underground man names what many sense, that the heart resists being engineered, that metrics cannot measure tenderness, and that isolation can make even kindness feel suspect. Yet in our practice together, this basement can become a listening room. The gentle vantage we have been cultivating, the one that does not rush to fix, can sit beside our private fear of irrelevance and simply breathe. Notice how the body responds when you do this. Shoulders soften a fraction, the breath lowers, the room grows a degree warmer, as if a radiator somewhere finally clicked on. The facts of the day don't change, but the stance does. And in that small shift, the night becomes more spacious. Let us take a slow breath here, in and out, as if rinsing the room with quiet air. If you like, picture yourself descending a few steps to a small, clean cellar inside the mind. There is a chair, a low lamp, and your own company. Nothing to perform, nothing to prove. Rest your shoulders, unclasp your jaw, place a hand over the sternum and feel the gentle rise and fall. Then very softly ask, what truths do I find in my aloneness? Notice what comes. Perhaps the truth is that you are tired, perhaps that you long to be met without armor, perhaps that you are already quietly worthy, even when no one is looking. Allow whatever arises to sit beside you without argument, like a small animal warming its paws by the lamp. If resistance shows up, spite, impatience, the urge to shut the door, bow to it and let it breathe too. For tonight we do not solve ourselves, we keep company. And in that companionship, beneath the street's footsteps and the world's arithmetic, we listen for the steady, uncounted rhythm of a human heart. When you're ready, let the lamp glow on without you as you drift toward sleep, held by your own quiet presence. We have been walking together through chambers of suffering and honest solitude, learning to hold our pain with a softer, second gaze. Tonight we turn toward a door marked with a quiet word, redemption. Not a thunderclap of absolution, but the slow knitting of a torn fabric, thread by thread, until a life can be worn again. Redemption in Dostoevsky's world is not the erasing of wounds, but their transformation. How a scar becomes a seam that holds us more tenderly to ourselves and to one another. It is the small warmth returning to a hand that has been cold for too long. In this spirit, we follow a gentle guide, Alyosha Karamazov. Dostoevsky gave him a name borrowed from love and loss. Alyosha was also the name of the author's young son, who died in 1878 and entrusted to him a simple, radiant task: to keep a flame alive in a storm. In the brothers Karamazov, betrayal plays across the family like winter wind through loosened shutters. A father's vulgarities, brothers tangled in jealousy and pride, the faint echo of patricide lurking at the edge of their days. Alyosha moves among these fractures with a listening heart. He is not naive, he is porous. He lets the world in and holds it without hardening. And then a deeper trial. The elder he loves and trusts dies, and the expected fragrance of sanctity never comes. Instead, the elder's body decays, and the town whispers. For Alyosha, it feels like a personal betrayal by heaven itself. Faith, which had seemed like a bright river, sinks under the stones. He stumbles, he doubts, he weeps in a quiet room. But the night brings a different kind of weather. In the hush of exhaustion, he dreams a feast, a table laid with joy, light like amber honey falling across faces, the clink of simple cups, a kindness that asks for nothing. He hears a voice that is not scolding but welcoming, a voice that turns water to wine, scarcity to abundance, shame to sweetness. He wakes before dawn and steps outside. The sky is fresh and pale, the earth is cool. He kneels and presses his face to the ground as if greeting an old friend, whispering a vow that lives more in feeling than in words. I will love life more. I will forgive and be forgiven. From this softened core, Alyosha returns to the human tangle. He does not fix the brothers. He does not defeat the gossip. He simply becomes available, steadier, clearer, warmed by the taste of that dream. When he later kneels with a small band of boys by a stone and asks them to remember kindness, to keep the good minutes alive inside them like a hidden ember, he is not performing a miracle. He is apprenticing them to remembrance, which is its own kind of redemption. Notice what changed, not the facts, but the heart that met them. And so, this ancient wisdom finds its echo in our own lives. Betrayal wears many faces now. A trusted colleague who used your work without credit, a friend who let a confidence slip, a family member who turned away when you needed them. Betrayal can narrow the room inside us until all we can see is the wound. We feel the impulse to clench, to build walls, to sharpen ourselves into something that cannot be hurt. But here, Alyosha's path offers a softer contour. Redemption begins not in the courtroom of the mind, but at the table of the heart, where we sit with what is broken and ask, quietly, what can be turned to wine? This does not mean excusing harm or erasing boundaries. Earlier in our journey, we learned that suffering can be a compass, pointing to repair, apology, firmer lines, much-needed rest. Redemption adds a companion question. How do I let the wound become a well? It might look like this. You pause before sending the angry message and breathe, softly in, slowly out, 3 times. You speak a boundary without a blade. I won't accept that, and I'm stepping back. You offer a small goodness somewhere else where your heart can remember its shape. A check-in call, a dish washed that no one asked you to wash, a moment of unhurried listening. These are not strategies to be scored. They are ways of keeping the flame alive in a storm. And sometimes, as with Alyosha, a dream of a feast arrives unexpectedly. A walk that loosens the knot, the kindness of a stranger, a sentence in a book that feels like a hand on your shoulder. When it comes, take it as permission to love life a little more. Now, if you like, let us try a small practice together. Bring to mind a betrayal you have faced, not to relive it sharply, but to let it rest in your open palm. Notice where your body tightens. Place a hand there. Breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 6. Whisper inwardly, I see you. I won't abandon you. Now ask the question Alyosha asked without words. How can this transform me? Perhaps it invites courage, speaking a truth you've postponed. Perhaps it invites wisdom, clarifying what you will and will not allow. Perhaps it invites tenderness, letting love be small and daily rather than grand and dramatic. Allow answers to arrive without force. If nothing arises, that is also an answer. The soil is being watered, roots move quietly. Before we close, imagine you are at a simple table. Someone you trust pours clear water into your cup. In your chest, a subtle warmth begins, the way sun touches a winter window. Say to yourself softly, I will love life more. And as you rest, keep one ember of remembrance with you. Redemption is not an event, but a way of meeting the world. When betrayal narrows the room, open a window inside. When the heart clenches, place a gentle hand upon it. When a storm rises, keep watch over your small flame. In time, the seam will hold. In time, the water will taste a little like wine. On this stretch of our journey, we turn toward a quiet, steady flame, the search for what is true. Not a rigid doctrine, not a perfect certainty, but a living clarity that can guide us when the world grows noisy. Dostoevsky invites us to pursue truth not with clenched fists, but with a patient heart, the way a pool clears when we stop stirring the water. We have already learned to meet suffering with a second gaze, to listen rather than to flee. Tonight we deepen that listening. We ask, what remains when the storm of opinions passes, when the inner room grows still, and the small voice of conscience begins to speak? Let us take a soft breath here, in and out, as if polishing a small mirror inside the chest. In that shining, truth appears less like a verdict and more like a direction. It is a compass in the palm, warming to our touch, pointing us toward what is honest, humane, and quietly steadfast. Dostoevsky painted this search with a fierce tenderness in his novel Demons, first serialized in The Russian Messenger in 1871-72. In a provincial town, rumors move like wind through thin corridors. A circle of restless minds gathers in close rooms where the air feels used, and words arrive like sparks. Fyodor Dostoevsky drifts from ear to ear, feeding the fire, while the enigmatic presence of Nikolai Stavrogin seems to tilt the whole town off its axis. People aren't only persuaded by ideas, they are swept by them, possessed by them, as if a fever had found a host. The streets grow louder, and yet, beneath the clamor, a deeper question thrums. When a town is intoxicated with voices, who keeps a thread of inner sobriety. The tragedy is not merely the chaos outside, but the forgetting within. Amid plots and proclamations, the simple courage to say, "This is honest," or "This is not," becomes a rare and luminous act. And so, this old storm finds its echo in our own lives. Our timelines swell with claims, our group chats tug, notifications flash like restless birds at the window. We hear statistics and slogans, headlines and hot takes, and the room fills again with borrowed air. Here our earlier practice returns, the second gaze. We step back half a pace, we let the sediment settle. We ask not only, is this convincing, but what happens in me when I hold this? Do I feel narrowed or widened, brittle or sincere? Dostoevsky cautions us that abstract theories, even clever ones, can detach us from moral feeling. So we return to feeling, not to abandon reason, but to braid it with conscience. A truth worthy of us does not coerce, it clarifies. It does not demand that we become someone else. It helps us become more intact, more able to answer to our own name. Perhaps before sleep we can try a gentle experiment. Bring to mind one belief you have touched today, about the world, about another person, about yourself. Place it on an inner table and sit beside it without hurry. Breathe once softly. Ask, is this my truth? Notice where the answer stirs in the throat, the chest, the belly. Ask, where did this belief come from? Does it make me kinder, clearer, more responsible? Or does it make me frantic, hardened, dim? If the belief tightens you, loosen your grip and watch it drift a little, like ink fading in water. If it steadies you, let it anchor gently, like a compass needle finding north. Allow this question to sit quietly with you as you rest. In a world of many voices, how will I recognize the one that is mine, the one that keeps me honest and tender? Breathe and let the room grow quiet around that small, bright point of clarity. Tonight, our path widens into something vast, a horizon that does not end at the edge of sight. Dostoevsky often wrote of this space, the infinite, as both a promise and a trembling. In The Idiot, first published serially in the Russian Messenger in 1868 to 1869, he gives us a soul, Prince Mishkin, whose openness makes him feel the boundlessness of life like a wind across a high plain. Boundlessness can be tender, it can also be terrifying. When everything seems possible, we stand at the cliff of choices and sense not only potential, but also the drop. And here, after all we've practiced, sitting with pain, listening to our underground, staying faithful to small truths, we meet this larger sky. What if the very expanse that invites us also asks us to steady our breath? The infinite is not a distant cosmos. It's the quiet that opens when we imagine a life more honest, more loving, more real. It is the question that widens the room of the heart and asks, gently, will we step through? Let us walk toward that horizon together, slowly, and see what it unveils. Imagine a winter evening in Petersburg. Mishkin stands in a dim room where a painting rests, a depiction of Christ's body after the crucifixion, the face drained of all glow, the world seemingly emptied of meaning. He whispers that such a sight could make a person lose faith, and yet he cannot turn away. This is how the infinite sometimes arrives, not as a starry choir, but as a naked fact so immense it cracks our tidy stories. Moments later, walking along the dark water, he feels that bright prelude in his mind, the flash that Dostoevsky knew in his own life, the strange lucidity that could precede an epileptic seizure, a brilliance so complete it becomes a threshold to collapse. In that flash, everything is possible and everything is fragile. Love could heal, love could also wound. Truth could free, truth could cost us the life we thought we needed. He pauses on the bridge, breath clouding in the cold, and understands. The infinite does not promise comfort, it offers depth. Depth is both light and shadow, tenderness and risk, a wide sea that asks us to learn its weather. And so, this old scene finds its echo in the rhythms of our own days. The infinite appears in quieter clothes now, a blank page that glows on your desk, an application you're afraid to submit, a friendship that could become love, a calling you hear faintly, like music from another room. We taste possibility, and with it, the briny edge of fear. To choose is to let 1,000 other lives remain unlived. Our era multiplies horizons, the map on your phone that can take you anywhere, the endless feed that whispers there is always something more, the calendar that can stack your days until they tower. Standing before such breadth, the mind tightens. We stall, we second guess, we drift into the soft paralysis of postponement. But recall what we've been practicing, the second, kinder gaze, the willingness to share a small, honest act with the world. The infinite becomes less frightening when we touch it in one gentle place, here and now, with one truthful gesture. Like learning a coastline by walking a single cove, we can let one small choice acquaint us with the sea. Perhaps, as you rest, we can hold a simple question together. What infinite potential do I shy from? Let this question arrive like a tide that kisses the shore, then withdraws, then returns. Notice what rises, a project you keep placing back on the shelf, a conversation you avoid, a tenderness you fear to name. Place one hand over your breathing and take a slow, easy inhale. Exhale and allow the space around this horizon to soften. Now imagine the vast sea of options becoming a single line of light across the water. What is one small step that meets that light? A sentence written, a message sent, 5 minutes of learning, a promise to rest so that courage may ripen. You do not need to leap, you need only to turn toward. Allow this thought to sit quietly with you. The infinite is not here to swallow you, but to show you how large your heart already is. As we settle into the next stillness, we carry this gentle compass, one true step into a wide, beckoning world. We have walked together through shadowed corridors of the mind, learning to sit with suffering, to steady our gaze, and to take one small, honest step at a time. Here, let us pause in a quiet alcove of the journey to speak softly about faith. Not a doctrine or a fixed creed, but the inner conversation that continues when lights dim and the room grows still. For Dostoevsky, faith was not a conclusion. It was an ongoing dialogue, a trembling yet persistent voice that asks, "What do I live by when plans fail and certainties thin?" It is not blind, it listens. It argues, makes tea with doubt, and invites conscience to sit at the table. He suggests that faith is less like a fortress and more like a small ember in a hearth, tended with breath and patience, glowing through drafts and weather. As we rest here, we let the ember glow, sensing how our own lives may be warmer than we realized when we sit close enough to feel the quiet heat. In the pages of The Adolescent, Podrostock, first published in monthly installments in 1875 in the magazine Otechestvennai Zapiski, faith is often under siege, yet strangely resilient. We meet Arkady, young and restless, stitching his hopes into schemes and secret letters, dreaming of becoming a Rothschild while his heart longs for a more trustworthy wealth. Imagine a narrow Petersburg morning, corridors echo with footsteps, a window lets in a pale band of light, and in Arkady's jacket a letter rests like a hidden coal, warm, dangerous, carrying promise and peril. Around him swirl older voices, the worldly Versilov with his elegant disbelief, and the humble Makar with his simple, unembarrassed reverence. Arkady wavers between them. He doesn't inherit certainty, he inherits a quarrel of the soul. Yet in that quarrel something living appears, a stubborn tenderness for goodness, a willingness to be moved, a readiness to begin again after each misstep. Faith for him is a thread pulled through rough fabric, sometimes knotting, sometimes slipping, but holding the garment together as he learns how to wear his life. And so this old story finds its echo in our own nights. Our faith in ourselves may fray after a failed attempt, an unreturned message, a heavy headline. Our faith in others may flicker when promises thin or trust is late. We too inherit a quarrel of the soul, the sleek voice that says, protect yourself at all costs, and the quieter one that says, stay open, even if gently. Perhaps faith today is the art of tending a small flame in a crosswind, the daily practice of aligning action with an inner yes, even when the path is not fully lit. We remember what we've practiced together, the second, spacious gaze that steps back without abandoning care, the one truthful step that translates the infinite into the doable, the dignity of small acts that keep love from going cold. In this way, faith is not certainty but consent, the willingness to keep showing up with a soft, brave heart. Let us take a quiet breath here. And another, as if feeding a coal with air. If you wish, ask softly, what is my faith built upon? Not the words for it, but the felt supports beneath them. Perhaps name in your mind 3 anchors you can touch even in the dark, a quality within you that does not abandon you, a person or memory that steadies you, a value you are willing to carry, even when no one is watching. As you breathe, notice how the body recognizes these anchors, shoulders loosening, jaw unclenching, breath moving more freely. Let this question keep you company tonight without demanding an answer. If faith is a dialogue, then let it be a kind one, patient with your silences, tender with your changes, faithful to your becoming. And as you drift, imagine that small ember in the hearth, steady in the hush, bright enough to guide your next step when morning returns. Peace amidst disorder is not a contradiction. It is a way of standing, of breathing, while the world continues in its weather. In Dostoevsky's vision, especially in the Brothers Karamazov, first published in 1880, calm is not the same as control. It is a tenderness that survives the thunder. It is the dignity of staying honest, responsive, and kind when events refuse to obey our plans. Elder Zosima's teaching rings like a small bell in the chest. Each of us is responsible for all. Not responsible to carry every burden, but responsible to answer with the measure of goodness that is ours to give. When we quietly accept this, a deeper stillness appears, not because the storm has ended, but because we are no longer arguing with the rain. We turn, as we have been practicing through this journey, toward a second gaze, seeing the tumult as real but not total, feeling our feet on the ground, remembering that even in confusion, conscience can breathe. Let us take one soft breath together here, and another lighter than the first. Imagine a corridor at the monastery, candles breathing their small golden light, wax pooling like little lakes on iron saucers. The elder has died, and with him, for a moment, hope seems to fade. Whispers move like drafts through the hall, disappointment, quarrel, accusation, echoes of the Karamazov world where love, pride, and grief collide. Alyosha walks that corridor with a heart pulled in many directions, until his grief ripens into a strange clarity and a dream opens, festive, tender, like the wedding at Cana, where the elder's compassion feels alive again. He wakes, steps into the night, and the air is cold and clean. He falls to the earth, and love pours through him, not as an idea, but as a warmth that makes the ground itself dear. He looks at the world, at the simple miracle of sticky little leaves, at the ordinary stones, and his tears are not despair but gratitude. The scandal, the trial, the family storm have not ceased, but inside him a shore has formed, firm and quiet, like a tide pool protected by rock. He stands not above life but within it, and the night becomes companionable. And so this old scene finds its echo in our own lives. The phone lights up, the headlines throb, a child cries in the next room, a difficult email waits like a closed door. The body braces, breath shortens, thoughts quicken, the room feels smaller than it is. Here is where our practice enters, not to erase the noise, but to embody steadiness inside it. We place both feet on the floor and feel their weight. We soften the jaw and let the shoulders fall. One gentle inhale and a longer, unforced exhale. We remember the compass we cultivated earlier, conscience before cleverness, presence before perfection. We choose one small act that belongs to us, a glass of water carried to a tired friend, a few quiet words that repair a thread, a boundary that protects tenderness, or simply turning down the volume. Peace becomes an embodied verb, not a distant prize. Like a river stone holding its shape under rushing water, we do not stop the current. We meet it with form, weight, and patience. Allow a soft question to rise and rest with you now. How do I maintain my peace amid today's disorder? Notice where the answer lives in your body, perhaps a widening behind the ribs, a loosening at the throat, a warmth in the hands. Let the breath lengthen slightly, in through the nose and out through the mouth, the exhale a shade longer than the inhale. If you like, place a palm over your heart and imagine the cool night air outside the monastery, the earth steady beneath you, the small miracle of leaves, ordinary, shining with dew. Ask yourself, what is one gentle gesture I can embody in the next hour that keeps me human, even if nothing else changes? Perhaps it is speaking one truth softly, or sitting in silence, or letting the day go without an argument in the mind. Hold this inquiry like a candle cupped from the wind. Let it glow without strain as you drift, thoughts softening like snow falling through streetlight. And if the world remains noisy, let your inner step remain slow, kind, and sure, a quiet path through weather that will pass. We have been learning to carry a quiet core through the noise of the world, practicing steadiness as a lived human kindness. Tonight, we lean into a simple, paradoxical truth. Calm does not wait for the sky to clear. Calm begins the moment we stop wrestling the weather. Dostoevsky points us to this with a gaze that neither flinches nor dramatizes. A tranquil mind, he suggests, is not achieved by force or control, but by accepting that storms will visit, swirl, and pass in their own time. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the softening that lets the wind move through us without hollowing us out. We are not required to like the storm. We are only invited to notice it fully, its textures, its changeable light, and to trust that the noticing itself begins to weave resilience. Let your breath be a witness now. Inhale, feel the body awaken to the present. Exhale, and imagine setting down an unnecessary bundle of resistance. As we continue, let us hold this gentle question close, like a smooth stone in the palm. In the very midst of turmoil, what quiet might be possible here? Dostoevsky draws this lesson in a scene of weather that is more than backdrop. In Notes from Underground, the second part bears a telling title, apropos of the wet snow. Wet snow is not the noble blizzard of epic tales. It is messy, clinging, undecided between rain and frost. It drips from eaves, collects in heavy slush at the curb, and turns steps into small acts of balance. Imagine a Petersburg street at dusk. A carriage wheel hisses through the slop. A stray dog shakes itself, scattering beads of water. Lamps smolder in a halo of damp air. The underground man moves through this weather, thoughts prickling like sleet on skin. He longs to shape the night into a victory, an apology delivered perfectly, a slight repaid with exacting precision, a conversation steered to the safe shore of control. But the more he insists, the more the evening tangles. Words snag, faces tighten. The city's wet breath will not obey him. There is, for a heartbeat, a pause. He stands beneath a lamplight while the wet snow murmurs on the pavement. If one listens gently, the scene teaches. The weather does not change because we glare at it. It is the turning of the gaze from domination to witness that opens a doorway to steadiness. We do not master the storm. We learn the art of letting it pass through without breaking what is tender within. And so this old scene finds its echo in our own nights. The storm arrives as a cascade of messages, a bill we forgot, a name that awakens an old hurt, the news humming with fresh uncertainty. Our first impulse is to tighten, to script the next 5 moves, to polish a defense, to force an outcome. but tightening is like pushing against the weather. It makes our steps slip more. Acceptance is not passive. It is the gentle pivot that returns us to contact with what is actually here. The breath traveling its patient route, the mattress holding our weight, the rhythm of the heart tapping a steady code for still alive. From here, resilience grows like a lantern blooming from within the ribcage, not to banish darkness, but to make it navigable. We can test this in small, practical ways. Name the weather you are in: storm, drizzle, crosswind. Loosen the jaw, unwind the shoulders, and ask for only one honest step, not the whole map. Let the email wait for a kinder tone. Let the apology ripen until it can be truly given. Let the body be the proof that you are not lost, only weathered. This is the second gaze we've practiced, seeing the problem as real but not total. The storm is present, yes, and so too is our capacity to meet it with human proportion and care. For a few breaths, let us practice together. Gently feel the place where your body meets the bed or chair. Let the contact spread like warmth through fabric. Inhale for a soft count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for a count of 6, letting the breath slope down like rain from the eaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you breathe, name the weather inside without judgment. It is gusty tonight, or it is only a passing shower. Now ask quietly, as if confiding to an old friend, what serenity can I find here? Not later, not after the inbox empties or the explanation convinces. Here, inside the ordinary wet snow of this moment, perhaps serenity is as small as the feeling of your palm resting upon your chest, or the way your breath brushes the back of your throat. Perhaps it is the simple permission to delay a decision until morning. Allow this question to sit beside you, unforced and open. Let calm be the harbor that receives the choppy tide rather than the wind that fights it. And as the storm continues beyond your window, remember that your task is not to command the sky, but to keep company with yourself in a way that is steady, kind, and true. In this companionship, resilience takes root, quietly, reliably, like a light that does not flicker when the door opens and a brief draft passes through. As we draw this journey to a close, let us feel the soft arc we have traced together, moving from turbulence to tenderness, from the clang of restless thoughts to a quieter, steadier heart. We walked with Dostoevsky through rooms of doubt and corridors of hope, learning the second gaze that sees clearly without tightening, and the small, honest steps that make freedom practical. Tonight, this path narrows into a gentle footbridge that leads towards sleep. We cross it slowly with gratitude. We remember how suffering, held with patient attention, became a messenger and not a verdict. How conscience spoke more truly than clever excuses. How faith revealed itself not as thunder, but as a quiet conversation we keep returning to. And how peace was less a grand conquest than a posture, shoulders lowered, breath softened, eyes kind. Let us allow that posture to settle now. Take a slow breath in, and a long, unhurried breath out. There is a story I want to leave with you, as gentle as the night. Imagine a nearly empty train gliding through winter fields after midnight. The carriage lights are dim, and the windows hold a faint reflection of your face, layered over the quiet villages passing by. In your hands is a well-traveled book. It is Dostoevsky's last, and was first shared with the world in pages that arrived month by month, serialized in the Russian Messenger from 1879 to 1880, a candle of chapters carried through time. You read a passage about a young man named Alyosha, a soul who tries, simply and stubbornly, to love what is before him. As the train sways, the words become less like sentences and more like a light placed near your chest. You close the book and lean your forehead to the cool glass. The rhythmic click of the rails seems to coordinate with your breath. Somewhere far off, a signal bell softens into silence. Nothing dramatic changes. And yet inside, a small place warms, as if a door that was stuck has decided, with a modest sigh, to open. The train keeps going. You let it carry you. In the dark, you do not need to see the tracks to trust their work. And so this wisdom finds its echo in our own lives. Our days can feel like that long rail line, hours strung together, villages of tasks and faces passing the window of our attention. Sometimes the mind crowds the carriage with passengers, regret, worry, unfinished conversations. Yet we learned across this journey that we can step back into a quieter seat and listen. We can choose one small, truthful step rather than demanding complete clarity. We can practice faith not by forcing belief, but by returning to what is tender and workable right now. We can embody peace in the smallest gestures, the way we set down a cup, the softness in our tone, the patience we offer to a tired thought. Even in a storm, our task is not to command the sky. It is to anchor, to breathe, to be kind. Let us do that together now. If you like, gently place a hand over your heart or wherever breath is easiest to feel. Imagine a place of calm, not perfect, not staged, just honest and safe. It might be a shoreline at night, the tide smoothing the sand with a patient, silver hand. It might be a small room with a single lamp and the soft hum of the world outside. It might be the bench under a tree you once knew, leaves listening on your behalf. Let this place arrive without effort. Let it choose its own colors and sounds. Breathe there. Notice the weight of your body supported without condition. The jaw loosening. The eyes unknitting. The breath flowing like a slow tide that never needs to reach shore. And now ask quietly inside, how does peace feel? Not what does it mean, not why does it matter. How does it feel? Is it cool or warm? Heavy like a blanket or light like a dawn breeze? Does it gather behind the sternum or in the belly or around the crown of the head? If there is no immediate answer, that too is peace beginning, space allowed, nothing forced. Let the question rest like a smooth stone in the palm of your attention. Let it simply be held. As you linger in your calm place, you might remember the path we traced through Dostoevsky's rooms. The messenger of suffering, the courage of confession, the simple act of setting down the burden of pretending, the practice of one small step, the tenderness that can coexist with doubt. Feel how these are no longer ideas on a page, but textures in your breath. If a thought arrives, let it drift past like a lantern boat on a wide river, seen, appreciated, allowed to continue. Return to the question only if it wishes to return to you. How does peace feel? Perhaps it feels like time becoming spacious. Perhaps it feels like being forgiven by the evening itself. For now, there is nothing to fix and nowhere to go. The work is done for today. The rails know their way home. Breathe in softly. Breathe out longer. Let the body be heavy and good. Let the mind be light and kind. And let this question nestle near your sleeping heart. How does peace feel? We will meet it again in the morning, but tonight it will hold you. Sleep well, dear traveler. Sleep well.